Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another one of our exit interviews for Big Brother Hometowns Season 20. I am excited, sad, but excited to be joined by the fourth juror, who I'm on the record stated one of my favorite BBH characters of all time, and was so excited to have her back for a second chance here, and just to see like the wild story that she had. And I'm excited to get a chance to talk to her about it. So let's bring her in. It's Nikki. Hey,
Hi.
how are you
Excited and
doing?
sad to be here. Yeah, no. I'm doing good. Luckily, I had lots going on right after I was voted out, so that helps. Get me distracted. I was super sad when I was voted out, but jury's
Yeah.
been fun and they've all been nice. So,
Yes, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I've been enjoying watching the conversations that the jury has been having. And I think we're
hmm
going to really have a really um, we're going to have a jury that takes a lot of care with the decision that they're making, and I love that. And I love that's why we
hmm
invited you all back, because we all knew you were great players and you want to see a great winner. So
hmm
um, but we got to talk about the BBH20 from
yeah.
your story. You were, I mean, Nikki, I hesitate to be verbose, but like I feel like you never really had a chance to like really get going. Like you were on the
Well,
block early, middle, and
mhm,
late parts of the game. Like it was just
yeah.
always like you trying to fight to survive. How was your
hmm
experience overall?
Yeah, I started the season of rough, not only on the block, but also I just didn't feel like I was able to put in the effort I wanted to put in. Like I wanted to put in the effort, but I didn't know how, and just didn't. I wasn't feeling myself within the game in the beginning, and then I
Mhm.
actually thought both my early times on the block helped me feel a little bit better. Like it gave me a mission. It gave me the mission to stay, which like having that very concrete mission really helped me. And like I basically I feel like when I had f- f- true power or when I was on the block, I think I played all right. Like I'm not regret like but when I was like just sort of in there, I feel like I misplayed a lot, and it was really hard to get the footing I wanted and to get the read on the game I needed.
Yeah.
But
You mentioned pretty early into the game that like the early game is never your favorite part of
yeah,
things. It's always you're not
hmm
you're always like trying to struggle. You always kind of struggle trying to figure out where you sit in the fabric of the
hmm
game. The first round where you were on the block in a small house,
yeah.
were you feeling the pressure from that? Like what was that experience like?
Yeah, that obviously wasn't the best way to start the game. And I like for a while there, I thought it was truly going on, mostly with how Jabbar was acting with me, and I thought Jabbar would have a lot of influence. Luckily, Lamont and Sarah were there, who I did were like two of the people I actually bonded with the most. Day
Mhm.
one, like I didn't get a good uh, sorry. I didn't get a lot of good early game connections, but Sarah Lamont were two people who I very early on, day one, day two,
Mhm.
or day zero even got really close to. So I think I got very lucky with that round one. That helped me just keep those votes to stay.
Yeah, for sure. And then from there, I mean, you kind of, in a good way, you kind of like faded back from the spotlight a
hmm
little, kind of had like an unlucky round three with Liv kind of being rising to power and being someone who would put you on up on the block.
Yeah.
Um, as you started to find your footing, though, I'm curious, like how
hmm
you saw the game progressing for you and kind of where you were ultimately leading towards. Because I think like some of those early connections that
hmm
you just mentioned ended up being people that you weren't as connected with, like towards the middle part of the game. So I'm curious how that transition happened.
No, so obviously then I went on the block. I saved myself. I kept myself in the game, but yeah, just stories kept coming out, and people kept pushing stuff. So I got worried. At that point, my closest people were like I wanted Miko and Louise to go really far together, um, and I just got really worried about Jamal and Lamont because everybody was constantly saying they felt good about them. So I kind of started to doubt them when I thought I had good connections with them. And then obviously they became the house targets. And I don't think I was pushing that and make them the house targets by what I said, but I was swept up with them for a while with the rest of the house, and oh, they're so dangerous. And then I suddenly was like, but wait, if they go, I don't have the strongest connection. So I went back to them. And I think them kind of being against Sarah made me more against uh, Sarah. And like I already had some doubts that I was like, I don't know how like who she's actually with, and is she closer to other people than she is to me? Like I was just unsure, and then like her being that good at comps and being unsure of her kind of made me not trust her, which I do think was definitely a mistake on my part. Um,
Well,
so
to
yeah,
be
that's
fair, she did
here.
win the veto twice and not save you with it. So, like, I think,
Yes, so I did like it was round one and round three, so it wasn't
right.
like that far into the game. So yeah, but that definitely didn't help, and especially the round one thing I never held against her. The round three thing I held against her more, mostly because in the same call she told me she wasn't using it on me. She was like, "I think we can get votes for you to stay." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I have some solid connections in the game. I think there's a chance. I don't think it's like for sure I'm staying, but I think there's a chance I'm staying." When she had, in my perspective later, much more information at that point than I did about me being the house target. And I need to go back and like that's one of the things I'm interested in about from like the VR and production perspective, like how much I was going and how much people were already kind of like in their like the R's maybe saying I would prefer Nikki to stay, but I don't know if the votes are there, or at least like that you guys were like, oh, the votes could be there if like the right people get together.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm curious like how that round looked from
From the
inside the game
upper
versus
perspective,
outside the game.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, because of that, I was like, well, not only did she not use the veto thinking there's a good chance I stay, she didn't use the veto thinking there's a very good chance I leave, which in my
Mhm.
perspective is very different not using the veto situation. Um, so yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely didn't help.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
And then the alliance she was in, and I was like, because she also said I didn't use it because of not knowing the renown, and then a few days later it was like, well, they're in this really solid alliance that apparently everybody was talking about. So it was like, well, she's in this really solid alliance with Liv. How could she ever not have known the renown?
Right. For
Um,
sure.
it just yeah, that kind of made me. So yeah, then Carol left, which was devastating. I hated Carol leaving there, even though like, and I feel very at fault for that because I put her in that house, and
Well, yeah,
yeah.
that's what I want to ask you about because
Hmm.
so obviously you survive the block against Victoria. You get
Yeah.
a golden key.
Hmm.
You make I mean, you played the round right before I think it was final 14 round. You played so perfectly, just in like how you talked to Megs about the advantage, the call that you guys had, and how you like spoke to her
Hmm.
about it was just masterful play to like
Thank
keep
you.
yourself safe, keep your advantage in the game. Like, you know,
Hmm.
you made the right amount of threats as you needed to, being like, I'll just transfer the power to somebody else if you put me up on the block. Like,
Hmm.
like it was just played so very well. And
Hmm.
I just remember watching that call and just being super energized by like the way you played it. But so that happens. So you save your power. You ultimately are the person that gets to decide how things are going to shake out at final
Hmm.
13. What was your strategy in making that
Um,
decision?
Again, at that point, never told them this in the game actually, but at that point, I was very nervous about Jabbar Lamont, and me, Louise, had a call where and Carol, I think it was all three of us, had a call where Louise implied she might have to make the move against them. But I thought they would still feel really good about Louise and Carol, so I was like, if I put them together, then they can target her. Then I put Liv there for a target in case they needed another target, and for like basically Jabbar Lamont's target. Um, and then Trey had earlier that day told me he liked all four of those people, not Liv, but the other four. So I was like, I'll put him there just because I felt like we were still building a bond. So I was like, maybe putting him there helps.
Mhm.
Mostly, I was also pretty panicked, even though we speculated a lot about the twist and it being a split house. I didn't expect to get as much freedom as I did, so I didn't properly prepare for it with the
Yeah.
amount of freedom that I had. So I was mostly just interested to how the dynamics played out, and um, I thought one of Liv Jabbar would leave, which at that point um, I wasn't against. And in the emotionally, I had promised Max in that call, and I don't mind breaking promises, but if I can't, I won't. I had promised Max I would try to keep her safe if I could. Um, so I did want to put her in a spot where I thought she was pretty safe.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and the same thing with my. So I tried to put them in a decent position. Um, and yeah, I was also worried about Michael and Christian and about them making it really deep in the game. So I was kind of also, and they did end up being the downs on that side. So I mostly put them there to be like almost easy targets, but also I was just very curious to the dynamics, how it would play out. Like,
Yeah.
um,
There
and
were
like
some.
for me also sort of was like, okay, Sarah didn't nominate Megan or Max, who I didn't think she was with really. So that, in my opinion, gave me information. So it was also like,
Yeah.
I felt like targets and information from that side were going to be interesting.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, there were certainly a few people who were not pleased with the way that you split the
Yeah.
houses, specifically centered around like at that point in time, like some people who are considered the easier noms and Christian and Michael both being in the same house was
Mm-hmm.
definitely something that people were like, "What are we doing? Like, what are we doing here, Nikki?" Like,
Yeah.
and so, but then you know,
Mm-hmm.
as the game has it, you had an opportunity immediately following that round to pick your side, basically pick your people that
Yeah.
you wanted to be with. You win the
Mm-hmm.
live night HOH. What was the reason to, you know, after the
Mm-hmm.
split house and Jabbar and Lamont
Yeah.
and Louise kind of
Mm-hmm.
become maybe more of the house targets? Like, why
Yeah.
choose them when they're a small group of three and the house, which is the other
Mm-hmm.
eight people, is saying this is who we should get out? What was your thought process behind choosing them?
Yeah. So that's interesting. The other, yeah. So it's yeah, 4 against 7 because it's 11. But yeah,
Yeah.
mostly because I didn't feel that secure within the 7. I didn't think my position within those 7 people was very secure and very high. I thought once they're gone, I can easily also be an easy target, somebody to just get out. That's like not really on the in and off, but like still like a little bit of a threat to win because of mostly how I did in BBH17, surviving the block, getting the power. I thought people might at one point want to get me out still, so I can't just like sort of. I didn't think floating to the end with like lesser targets was really something that was in my future in this game. And I was like, once they leave, I like maybe I make it a little farther if I
Mhm.
if I go with the house there. And to be fair, I did not in the first place. I didn't want to win that HOH, and now I'm like, I don't regret it because I feel like not winning that HOH and letting Jabbar Lamont go would have still been bad for me. But I
Mhm.
didn't want to win that HOH. I that's nobody was able to do it very well, so I did.
Right.
Um, so mostly I was like, one, what doesn't piss the most amount of people off, but also, and one is like go with the house targets, but one, I wasn't. People hadn't talked to me enough about them being the house targets. Like I think because of my closeness to Louise and always me and Louise being associated together and Louise already being associated with them, I was already being associated with them. And then
Mhm.
I stepped fully into it, except instead of going against it, I just didn't see myself. I thought having allies on my side who can win comps because Jabbar did win that next stage, and obviously from there on out we don't win any comps anymore. But I felt like, and honestly, I did still think they'd be targets ahead of me, which clearly they weren't because they both made it. Louise and I end up going before Jabbar and Lamont. We end up being the bigger target, especially since we weren't sitting next to each other. She was sitting next to Jabbar and I was sitting next to Lamont.
Right.
In the end, we somehow end up the bigger targets, which is I still think is interesting, and I'm curious how that even happened because of like I misinterpreted that. I was like they will still be bigger targets than me, and people who I can actually show I'm on your side, I'm with you. But I feel like if I did the Jabbar and Lamont thing, I would just be doing house thing, and nobody would really, I wouldn't super gain people's loyalty when I think I
Yeah.
did that more with Jabbar and Lamont, especially after sort of ruining it with the split house. So I kind of went against them and then went back to them because I realized, oh wait, I thought they were too well connected, and like I was like basically, oh, Louise is the only one who might want to take a shot at them and take them out. The split house situation might be the right time to try and do it, basically, if she wants to. And then when I got back into the house, I was like, wait, everybody wants to target them now? Well, then I'm not nervous about them anymore because my whole problem was that they were good with everybody, which
Right.
means how, like, are they good with me if they're good with everybody? So that basically changed my mind on them. And
No, that makes, I mean,
yeah.
that makes perfect sense. Like, why would you
Hmm.
take out somebody else? Make them do their own dirty work, you know? Like
Hmm.
it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. And I think like in a world, you know, obviously you were the HOH at live night and you guys and Sarah, Erica is evicted. And then
Hmm.
the next round following, you know, Sarah also gets evicted right after that. Like in a world that's results oriented, your move is, you know, a good move because for 2 rounds you guys are able to kind of control the way things are going. But then, you know,
Yeah.
as the power shifts, obviously, then, you know,
Hmm.
we've now seen Luis, you and Lamont follow, you know, one by
Hmm.
one to
Yeah.
the jury house. So, I mean, it just to tip, you know, and I said this to Luis as well, like it's
Hmm.
unfortunate, but that's just the way Big Brother goes sometimes, that it does come down to who gets in power and where the comp lies fall. And
For sure.
um, so I'm curious if you have any like major thoughts about the fact that you and Luis were targeted prior to Lamont and Jabbar. Like, were you surprised by that? Was that something that you ultimately like weren't surprised by? Like, what did you think?
No, for sure. And like, um, Louise, at first I was very surprised by that, but like, at least from what they were telling me, it was more about Louise like flipping her vote twice basically, and not being upfront about it. So that makes sense. And between me and Lamont, they said it came down to comps, which might have been true. I'm not sure if it truly was just um, that they thought I'd be slightly better at comps. I think again, my like even like I literally the only comp I won this season was pure luck.
Yeah.
Um, but or even bad luck. Didn't want to win it.
Well, yeah, I think everyone just missed questions and you ended up.
Yeah, literally two questions got answered right, and one was by me, which was a pure guess.
That's funny.
Like I was in 5 rounds, I answered one question. Um,
um, well,
no,
so
but
I mean,
yeah, so I was surprised, and yeah, I truly thought. But again, I was mostly worried about them because of their social connections, and those were uh, dropping a lot. And from what I've now understand in jury, like all of them were just in an alliance together, so they like had very open communication with each other. And I knew there were some sort of like deals going on between them, but I didn't know it was as serious as an alliance as apparently it is because again, Jabbar's still on the block right now.
yeah. Um, as we have, you know, as we are like rapidly rushing towards the finale, I'm curious
Yeah.
kind of where your head is at, you know,
Hmm.
with the final 6 at this point in time. Is
Hmm.
there, what are you looking for, you know, in the end game? You know, what are you hoping you'll see, or and who are you rooting for? I'm curious to know.
I'm truly rooting for all of them. That sounds silly, but I truly believe this was such an amazing group of people, and I feel like all 6 of them have played this game super hard and super well. So I'm truly rooting for all of them. Um, Mostly, like I will absolutely look at the moves they are making towards the finale, but I will also very much be looking at them explaining their game to me. At like, I'm probably not gonna make my decision until actual jury questioning and jury speeches because I think being able to explain your game and explain how you were able to get here, like understanding your own game, and then I'm
Right.
truly just like I'm trying not to fill in their game for them and truly listen to what they're saying. Like obviously take into account a little bit if it's realistic, but mostly believing what they're saying and like about how they're playing. and make how I feel about that, and if I feel like that was good strategy, basically. Because I think if you make it to the end, like the moves you made somehow got you there, so like that's something to
Mhm.
respect. So but I'm hoping some people make some selfish choices and get themselves there.
Oh,
And
elaborate,
like
please
somebody
elaborate.
like Max, who I feel like will always come into a game with a target. Like I will never not be impressed. Like both,
Mhm.
I think Max, Jabbar, and Liv are three people that will, no matter what game they come into, they will have a huge ass targets on their back just because of their reputation in orcs.
Right.
Which I will. I feel like with a game like this, especially a returning season game, is something to take into account because it does hinder their game in ways. So I think it's also something to take into account at the end. Um, Megan, I think, is super interesting because she's so likable and she's so clearly so likable, and like everybody knows it, and still she hasn't been targeted or she hasn't been talked about as a threat when I think she almost should have been. So I think that's super impressive. Um, Michael, I love his enthusiasm for the game and just his excited to be here, and he's such a he could have so easily been an early boot and he wasn't, and I think he actually like did a lot to not make himself that, so I'm very impressed by that. And Trey, he's just like being able to like almost play the middle, like being able to be Max's target against Preston because she knew Trey was the person who will most definitely stay. And I was like, yeah, Trey was absolutely the right person to put up here. He's the person people will not consider voting out here. He will stay. So I think things like that were super interesting, and that's why like I need to hear about from them
Yeah.
at the end because I think there are six people and Jabbar, like yeah, and like I can say more about Jabbar, Max, and Liv, like they've done more, but I just been following
Yeah.
it too long. But
No,
I think they're
I,
awesome.
I love that you're open to
Hmm.
hearing people out. I think that's anything that, any finalist deserves. And I'm so
Hmm.
glad that you're going to get to be a juror and you're going to help us crown a winner in that, just a couple days from now, which is just so
Yeah.
wild. But Nikki, is there anything else that you want to say? I'm so thankful that we had you back, and I'm so glad that you said yes. And thank you so much for
Yeah.
putting everything into it like you always do.
No, I love Orc so much, and even though I hate it sometimes when I'm playing it because it's harder than it looks. Like I cried multiple times during this season when I've rarely cried during Orc, so I truly felt intensely about this season. Like with however like I sometimes maybe near the show, but I truly cared and truly tried my best, and I love everybody so much. This season was amazing. The production is amazing. I'm truly happy I came back and played.
Yeah, we were better off for having you on the season. So
Thanks.
thank you so much again. And thanks for your time today. Enjoy the
Of
rest of
course.
your vacation, and we'll see you on Sunday for the
Yeah.
finale. Everybody else, we're gonna get out of here. Thanks so much for watching, but bye everyone.
Bye.